The final score, Torquay United 3, Wrexham 1. And this is one of those games I think you can draw quite radically different conclusions from it, depending on how your outlook, if you like. On the one hand, I think we were pretty comfortably beaten. On the other hand, we were playing away to the league leaders with fans in for the first time, and we held our own very well in the second half. Better team in the second half, and it wasn't as if they were 3-1 up and taking their foot off the pedal. They were only a goal ahead, and they couldn't get control of the game back. The problem is, as always, we tend to struggle to score, and with both Ponticelli and, after 37 minutes, Kwame Thomas out of the game, well, we didn't have the finishing touch. Torquay did. That's why they're top of the league. It was also a game of quite small factors, and even in the first half, when Torquay were considerably the better side and could easily have won the match in those first 45 minutes, there were still certain factors that turned on it. One was the second Torquay goal, a penalty which was controversial. Get to that in a bit. And also the other was how Ben Whitfield in the first half gave real problems to James Horsfield. He didn't in the second half. If that duel had gone the same way in the first, again, I think that had quite a big influence how the game was going. But Dean Keats made 3 changes from the side that lost against Altrincham anyway. Jay Harris was available again. He came in centre mid ahead of Jordan Davis. Jake Bickerstaff, interestingly, was selected ahead of Adi Yusuf, and Horsfield came back to replace Reece Hall-Johnson. It was a horrible, blustery day down on the English Riviera, and Torquay started far the better team. After a sort of nondescript opening 5 minutes, they took the lead, ironically, from Wrexham's first serious attack of the game. A record throw into the box was cleared, and the impressive Lemony Evans on the right-hand side did well to pick the ball up, drive down the flank, and then play an excellent switch to Whitfield. Whitfield cut inside, and as Horsfield rather backed off him from 18 yards, drove a shot inside the left post, and Torquay were ahead. The following passage of play, again, how do you want to interpret this? Wrexham defended gutsily for 12 minutes. We were being dominated, but the defending was good, and Torquay weren't making chances. There were some good blocks, there were some good headers, we were defending a bit deep, and we certainly were failing to get the ball out of there and put any questions back at Torquay. But it was the sort of period that if you survive, you look back on and say, we earned the right to be in the game then. Trouble is, we didn't survive it, although it was a very controversial call that meant Torquay went 2 goals up. A corner on the right-hand side, swept in. Pretty clear, and I have seen the footage again, pretty clear that Kwame Thomas is fouled as the ball is arriving around the penalty spot into a thick crowd of players. He's pushed to the ground. The ref doesn't give it. There's then a rebound as Jamie Record is challenging with a striker, and it falls on the edge of the 6-yard box. This powerful shot comes in, and Theo Vassell gets what looks at first glance to be an excellent block to put the ball behind for the corner. Torquay players immediately pounced, beseeching the referee, demanding a penalty. The ref certainly hesitated for a bit, and then suddenly pointed to the spot. I didn't see it coming. I've got to say, it was on the blind side, really, the contact with Vassell, so I can't say for certain whether he did handle it or not. The astonished reaction of the Wrexham players implied there was, at the very least, an element of doubt about it. For me, the fact that Thomas was fouled clearly at the start is the thing. The whistle should have gone before the shot came in. Anyway, Hall stepped up and smashed the penalty into the roof of the net. And at 2-0 after 19 minutes, you rather suspected we could be on the end of a horrible pasting here. To be fair, a minute or so later, it was 2-1. And again, you can criticise this Wrexham team if you wish. You can't knock their spirit. They went straight back up the other end and grabbed that goal. A corner on the left-hand side was swung in. Vassell, 6 yards out at the near post, lost his man, and a nice glancing header across to keeper McDonald and inside the far post. Vassell had his first goal for Wrexham. He's consistently been getting into good positions on set pieces, but not managing to score. So this was a good reward for him. And I must say as well, an excellent performance all round by him. I think probably our man of the match, as we'll get to in a minute. Torquay tried to respond, had a couple of opportunities. The main one coming when the ball fell to the main after a good tackle on Harris. The main turning on the edge of the area and hitting a shot from 18 yards, which just scraped the left-hand post. But then Wrexham had the best spell of the game halfway through the first half. Actually started to bring the ball down, put pressure on, and start to ask questions at Torquay. Wrexham's midfield began to get a bit more composure about it, started to move it around, started to force Torquay deeper and deeper. The first opportunity was Bickerstaff, who got the ball in midfield, did really well to drive onto the edge of the area. He was fouled at one point, but kept going, and then hit a shot from 20 yards, which was desperately close to going in, just the wrong side of the post, with the keeper lunging after it. And then a free kick knocked into the box and helped on to Vassell. He was 10 yards out, central position, clear sight of goal. The ball, well, I think he'd have liked it to just maybe drop a little bit more, but he felt he had to take the snapshot, and he hit it too straight, and the keeper was able to hold it comfortably. And then Torquay, frankly, laid siege for the rest of the half. Danny Wright up front was causing problems. He always causes problems. I've always been a fan of Wright, and even now in his fading autumn years of his career, I hope, not just his life, oh God, what have I said? He was a real handful. I mean, part of the reason he's a handful is how the referee interprets him. We remember from our Wrexham days, there were times when referees didn't like him leading with his arms, didn't like him getting physical, didn't like him making contact with centre-backs before the ball arrived, and would just penalise him all the time. A more laissez-faire referee, and Wright becomes a major factor in the game. In fact, I talked about small margins turning against Wrexham at the start of this. Well, one that went in our favour was after 15 minutes, Wright had to come off injured because he really was a huge threat. And his departure, maybe that was the big turning point of the game. Anyway, he was causing issues up front. Kelleher certainly was struggling to deal with him. By my interpretation, I thought he gave a lot of free kicks away, right? But the ref didn't give them. And so because of that, we were finding it difficult to get the ball away. And then Whitfield, as I said, was causing issues, breaking down the left-hand side into the box around the half-hour mark. Horsfield giving him too much space to operate in, and from a tight angle driving in a shot, which Dibble, tight to his near post, was able to parry. Then it was the main cross, but she hit into the ground on the right-hand side in the box. The ball span dangerously across goal, fell to Whitfield. He hit up well on the volley. It beat Dibble. Vassell came from nowhere and managed somehow to head it off the line. He headed it up in the air, though, and horrifyingly, the ball actually dropped in the goal mouth. The main was close to it, but just couldn't get the touch, and Wrexham were able to scramble the ball clear, really riding our luck on that occasion. Then, a lovely moment of what would have been a fabulous goal. Andrews chasing a 50-50, managed to get there first and had to whip it in first time and hit the sweet spot. Tore a great ball in towards the penalty area where Wright got ahead of Kelleher and met it with the glorious header, which luckily for Wrexham was just wide of the left post. Dibble wouldn't have had a chance. Then came a disruptive moment for Wrexham. Kwame Thomas and Harris jumping for the same ball with the main. The main maybe didn't really take off, and as a result, the two Wrexham players clashed, and Thomas had banged his head. It was right in front of the dugout, thankfully, and immediately we saw the physio on the pitch looking at his head, and oh gosh, memories of last Saturday, and Rob Lainton came back. It was a long stoppage, but nowhere near as long, and Thomas was able to walk to the bench himself. But obviously he had to be removed. Let's hope he's okay. Adi Yusuf came on in his place, and there was one last chance in the first half for Torquay as well. Whitfield this time the provider, running at his man Horsfield, squaring it, and Lemonade Evans from 10 yards out, making contact, but luckily for Wrexham, Vassell lunging in, just about got the tackle in, and it ricocheted off his foot, hit the post, and span away. So close to being 3-1, and Wrexham couldn't have complained, despite the heart they showed coming back from letting in that penalty. The fact is, Torquay could easily have scored 4 or 5 in the first half, and the game would be gone. So, the rest of this might sound a little bit like a hard luck story. Don't take me too seriously, because that game could easily have been lost. But it wasn't. And to be fair to Wrexham, we improved massively in the second half. We had the first opportunity, Record on the left-hand side, back-heeling it in, and then Durrell cutting in and taking it to within 25 yards for hitting a typical shot, which went wide of the right post. There were the odd moments of danger from the home side. Whitfield beating a man and then from 25 yards hit a shot which was uncomfortably close as it went over the bar. And then a wonderful tackle by Kelleher, as it really looks like a close-range chance was on the cards as the main cut in. Massive calls for a penalty by Torquay. It wasn't. It was a great tackle. It was a dangerous tackle. If he got it even slightly wrong, it would be a penalty. But he had to make it because Wrexham were completely exposed, and the referee and Kelleher, I thought, got it exactly right. Great last-ditch tackle. Still, Wrexham could have been punished because the corner came in and Kyle Cameron met it 15 yards out with a header, which Dibble had to push over the bar. He was always going to get there, but it was dropping awkwardly, and so we had no option but couldn't catch it. Wrexham made a change 10 minutes into the second half, and it was another of the key turning points that let Wrexham get fully on top. Anthony Jeffrey on for Bickerstaff. Bickerstaff had run around enthusiastically and done a lot of work, and indeed that run and shot he had in the first half was maybe Wrexham's best effort, apart from the goal. But Jeffrey coming on and the switch to 4-3-3 worked really well. With 3 men in midfield, Wrexham had a bit more control, although, well, it was an attacking 4-3-3 because that trio were Harris, Young and Durrell. And then up front as well, we had 2 wide men in Jeffrey and Rutherford supporting Yusuf, and we started to look more threatening. We could have scored immediately, actually, because after Jeffrey came on, Wrexham took a free kick, lofted into the box. The keeper, McDonald, started to expose himself as maybe not the best keeper in the league, quite frankly. He looked shaky from this point. He came tearing off his line. He was never going to get there. He tried to jump with the crowd of players on the edge of the box, didn't get anywhere near making it, and the ball was knocked down. Rutherford had a chance to lift it into an empty net, but couldn't get enough elevation on it, and it was headed away from 6 yards out. With that defender not there, it was 2-2. And when the ball came out to Durrell, it was so frustrating for all of us and him. If you have that sort of unorthodox situation, you need somebody to just get a good contact on the ball from the edge of the box. Let's be honest, we wanted to be Durrell. It just fell on his left foot. There were a crowd of players around him, and so he couldn't get off that early snapshot. When he did finally get onto his right foot, players had closed in on him and I think maybe put him off, and he pulled a very weak affair wide of the left post. Frustrating, a real opportunity. Then Jeffrey started running at Shering, the Torquay right back, who was normally a centre-back, and looked it. Jeffrey had the beating of him. In fact, one of the disappointments perhaps in the second half is after Jeffrey had illustrated that he had the beating of him, we didn't really get enough of the ball to Jeffrey because he was often isolating him. Torquay's formation made it not the easiest thing to get cover on and support the full-back, and maybe we should have looked down the left-hand side a bit more. Jeffrey pulled in a cross. Young attacked it 10 yards out, a rather tame effort, although it appears to be deflected behind. Young was furious when the decision was a goal kick. And then about 5 minutes later, Jeffrey again, ripping a lovely-looking cross into the far post. It was cleared by a desperate diving header at the far post and went back across the face of goal. Rutherford 6 yards out. Again, one of those frustrating things. He's so close to goal, but there was no real option to shoot. His defenders quickly blocked the path to goal. He came inside into his right foot and tried a curler and was, ironically, perhaps a bit too close and couldn't get it to come back in time, and the ball went wide. But Jeffrey was causing problems. There was another controversial moment where Jeffrey surged past Shering and was in a glorious position but went down. The referee gave a goal kick, which confused me slightly. Everything about this incident confused me. Even the commentators on the stream, who, were biased, as I am when I do stuff like that, I'm not complaining, said that was a foul. He made contact with Jeffrey. I would be very confused to understand why Jeffrey would go down in that situation, because the best he could hope for would be a yellow card for Shering and a free kick, 10 yards out on the left wing. Whereas if he'd carried on, he had acres of space to come into the box and shoot or pull the ball back to somebody. It was a glorious position. So if he did dive, not good. But why didn't the ref book him? I'm really confused if he really thought that was a dive. So, anyway, nothing came of it. And Wrexham didn't find Jeffrey as often in those positions after that point. But we kept pressing on. Record really went close. Yusuf scrapping on the edge of the box. He was tackled and the ball sped across the face of the area. Record, again, like that Andrews cross in the first half, sprinting after it, a 50-50 ball, just got to it first, had to hit it first time, and nailed it. And it just went wide of the right post. I thought it was telling that at that point you really, for the first time, heard the Torquay fans. who realised their team were in a bit of trouble. It was only 2-1, and we were, if not creating really good chances, was certainly living in their half now. And they started making noise because they could see something was wrong. Luckily for them, the next opportunity was a goal for Torquay. And you've got to be unhappy with this goal. I think the genesis of it partly is that we had to take chances to try and pull ourselves back into the game, and playing that attacking 4-3-3, asked Elliot Durrell to get back into defensive positions. And he already had the FA Cup game against Solihull where he gave the penalty away. I am not trying to hang him out to dry. In fact, I thought he played very well in the second half. But he's not naturally a player getting back and making challenges in the box. What happened on this occasion? Well, it was misfortune, and it wasn't just him. We could have had a free kick because Yusuf seemed to be fouled on the halfway line. It wasn't given. And then the main, breaking down the right-hand side, played a poor pass inside, but was very lucky because Harris couldn't react in time. So it just bounced off him back to the main. The main then swung a good ball over to the far post. Lemony Evans brought it down, tried to feed the ball inside. Durrell had a bit more time than Harris maybe to deal with it, but wasn't able to, and it bounced back off him to Lemony Evans, and 8 yards out, he just smashed the ball home. Horsfield lunging might have got a touch on it, but it was a powerful finish anyway. I don't think you could complain. I don't think Horsfield, if he did have an intervention, made any difference. Again, Wrexham pushed on really hard, and straight from letting a goal in, had a moment themselves. Harris playing it over the top. And the keeper, it was wild goalkeeping, came tearing off his line. Yusuf had got goal side of the last defenders and beat the keeper to it. And the keeper just dived and clattered into him. Was it a penalty? Ref said free kick just outside. I've looked at the replay. There's only one replay of it from the same angle as the main camera. It's inconclusive. It could well have been a penalty. If you look at if you look at the actual instant, your gut feeling is it made just outside. If you look at where Yusuf is, you start asking yourself questions because, the frame before the contact, the last time he touches the ground, he's in the box. So it'd be interesting to look back on. But it's a tight call. Unlike the penalty, which I think we have justified grievance about, the ref's got to make a call, and the linesman was there to help him. So okay, the free kick was an astonishing waste. It was about 15 yards out on the right hand side. Young just chipped it into the keeper like catching practice, and that led to Torquay's last chance of the match because McDonald got rid of it quickly. Vassell misheaded it, and Whitfield was one-on-one with Dibble, but from a tightish angle, Dibble was off his line quickly and made a good block with his legs. And the last 10 minutes, even though we were 2 goals down, did see us pushing on and making chances, to be fair. Young got a free kick on the edge of the D and pulled it, looking for the top left corner, just missed the target. Then moments later, he played the ball over the top, and Yusuf was momentarily one-on-one with the keeper. Terrific recovering tackle by Cameron, denied him. And still, to be fair, Wrexham pushed on. Durrell making a really nice turn in midfield, playing a 1-2 with Young, and then running into the box down the right channel from 10 yards out, hitting it with power, the ball hitting the side netting, not too far off target. Horsfield swept in across, and Kelleher had gone up, got his head to it, 6 yards out, free header. Like Vassell, he gets into good positions. Like Vassell, he doesn't finish them. And it was a weak header, really weak. The keeper didn't, I don't want to say saved it, just came across to it. And, well, I'm afraid the chances ran out. We had another run at them in injury time, but it was a defeat. Sort of one of those annoying, decent performance defeats. We are away to the league leaders. They are supposed to be good. And you can see why they're league leaders. Like I said, in the first half, they could have dominated us. Now, an ability to get out of the box was worrying. Although we're not for the penalty call, we might well have ridden out that spell. In the second half, we were much better. A lot of these away games, I keep thinking, do we need the third midfielder, actually, just to give us that extra body, that extra control? Young and Harris on their own, good players, but are they able to control the middle of the pitch when our wide players are trying to push on? So, yeah, sometimes I think in these away games, that 4-3-3 looks a bit more compact. We certainly played better in the second period. And I guess that's reflected if I go through the performances. Dibble, again, you couldn't blame him for the goals. Didn't do anything wrong, made a couple of decent stops. Across the back, I thought Horsfield had a rough first half, to be honest. Whitfield caused him problems. Did a lot better in the second half, didn't really have any problems, and got forwards a few times and put some nice balls into the box. And the left record played well, I thought. Again, defensively seemed sound and had some threat going forwards. Centre-backs, Kelleher did not enjoy playing Danny Wright, and I'd say Wright got the better of that battle. Whereas Vassell, I thought, was excellent, made a number of key interceptions, used his pace to good effect on a few occasions. Very unlucky to have the penalty given against him, but goes up the other end and scores. Fair play to him. But it's not the goal that matters to me. Why I think he's probably our best player was that he often stood firm, was often the player making the key challenge, and defensively was very adept. He made that one mistake with a misheader that Whitfield could have scored from at the end of the game, but Vassell did very, very well, I thought. In midfield, Harris tried to drive things forwards, but wasn't really able to get a grip on the middle of the pitch as I know he'd like to. Young was quite anonymous. Now, on Tuesday, he was quiet, which I put down to the fact that with Harris suspended, Davis was pushing on more and Young was playing a bit deeper than he normally would, and I thought that subdued him a touch. But here he was back with Harris, and it seemed the same. He didn't really make much of an impact against, of course, a club where he's a club legend. But he didn't make that much impact. The last 10 minutes, he sort of came alive, had a couple of little passes in dangerous areas in that free kick. But yeah, I usually expect him to be a bit more prominent than that. On the flanks, I thought Durrell was quite disappointing in the first half, to be honest. Didn't get into the game much, didn't use it much. Second half, he came alive, and he did well in that central position I was referring to as well. He was popping up between the lines. He was looking to have threat. He was looking to get shots off. Sometimes, I know we look to play him out to win, don't we, often, and he'll come narrow. In the first half, I thought maybe we needed to be a bit more rigid and stop them from getting at us. By us having Durrell coming narrow. But in the second half, yeah, when he was playing more narrow for 35 minutes of it, I thought he was very effective. On the other flank, Rutherford was, got into a couple of good positions, but wasn't able to capitalise, didn't really get many balls into the box. A lot of endeavour, as always. And then up front, Thomas was getting no service, but still winning headers, battling away, in fine form. And then that injury, well, let's hope it's not too serious. Alongside him, Bickerstaff again, like Rutherford, you're going to get energy and enthusiasm. But apart from that good run he had, he really didn't trouble the centre-backs much, and you could understand why we made the alteration. The subs, Yusuf had more threat about him, to be fair, and caused problems, running into channels, engaging the centre-backs, probably stung by the fact that Bickerstaff was preferred to him. And Jeffrey did well when he came on the left-hand side, but faded out of it a little bit. But certainly those two helped to lift the performance a bit. So I don't know, where do we go? I mean, 2 defeats in a row now. This one's much more understandable than the Altrincham one. And there were elements of this performance which were good. But we can't afford to get losing momentum going, especially with the Dover game off. So we're starved of home games. Eastleigh's tough on Tuesday, but we really don't want to be looking at that and having another frustrating defeat, because then we will start sliding away from that good position they were in at the start of the match against Altrincham. I know I'm speaking obviously, but we need to be careful with momentum here. These weird COVID seasons are odd all around the world. Teams are picking up momentum, losing momentum, postponements, random patterns of fixtures coming on top of each other are affecting teams and affecting teams' momentum. And having now the possibility of other clubs having their fans in will again maybe affect things a little bit more. So this season is going to be a glorious opportunity for some teams, and I think we're one of them. The takeover going through, hopefully in December, could free up money maybe to bring in not a lot of new players. I don't think that's necessary, but to bring in a small group of high quality players just to enrich a well-constructed squad. So as long as we can get through this tricky period of away games with not too much distance between us and where we want to be, I think there's a chance we could really kick on in January. Not least because I think this team has shown against Sutton, first half against Altrincham, in some of the other games we've played, that it's really got potential, but it hasn't quite come together yet. So if we can start to come together, and then a couple of good judicious signings can come in to improve us, yeah, we could easily be one of those second half of the season teams kicking on while maybe other clubs have issues. But we can't afford to have these away games now hurt us. So I feel we're coming up to a bit of a crunch period in the season here, and let's hope we can show that second half spirit and get through it. With a final score of Torquay United 3, Wrexham 1, I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team.